All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Kieran Corbett. Kieran, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. Very, very happy to be chatting to you.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this, and I want to start off by just giving a shout out to Joel Strauss because Joel was the one who introduced you and I, and Joel, without you, Kieran and I may have never met. So thank you so much, and I will tell you, Kieran, I don't know how you feel about it, but you know, being introduced is the absolute best way to get connected with new people and stuff because I don't know, it's not like I've known Joel all that long, but what I do remember, Joel, man, that guy, he runs an agency and he has got an amazing story, and he also is just really brilliant the way that he positions himself. And in fact, when I first heard him share that with me, I was like, you know what, man, I need to start putting you in front of some people in my world because I just want to see what happens when they hear you share what you do, because I think it's going to be really good and I just want to see it happen. And and so, when you have that kind of a connection with somebody, and then he was like, Kev, I want to introduce you to Kieran because you need to interview him for the show too. I am like, man, I'm totally in. And you and I already got to have a conversation, get to know each other a little bit, and I've been looking forward to this. So yeah, Joel, thanks again, man. And so Karen, we'll just start off with, well, at least from my perspective, it's a really simple question to ask. Not always the easiest to answer. We'll see how it is for you, but it'll kick us off here, and then we'll dig deeper. What do you do, Karen, and who do you guys serve?
Thanks, Kevin. So I work with Studio VC. So we're a seed stage VC fund that's based in New York City. So
Okay.
we serve both founders and investors. From a founder standpoint, we invest in founders that are operating in B2B SaaS, enterprise AI, and fintech. So where we normally invest into those companies is when they're post product and often post a little bit of revenue. But founders that are looking for that investment and the expertise and value add that we can give to really get them to the next level of their company.
Very good. So how did you even get in? When I was a kid, I always use this example. I thought I'd grow up and be a fireman. I never did. But I will tell you what I get to do now is like way better than being a fireman, at least in my imagination it is. And but I certainly could have never imagined doing what I'm doing now when I was a kid. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit and like what was the path for you? How did you get here? How did you get into doing what you do now and stuff?
So my path, I think, from a young age, I was always very interested in finance and interested in the markets and interested in risk and gambling and all that kind of thing. So I was naturally sort of affiliated to that line of work. Pretty much straight after university, I went into derivatives trading. So I was working as a futures trader with a company in Dublin, in Ireland, called Positive Equity. So that was a place where I started at probably around 23, 24, and became a trader in the futures markets, trading a wide variety of different products. So I did that career for probably about 13 years. A lot of it while I was still in Dublin, and then also moved to New York in 2016. So that was a really interesting career with very, very dynamic markets that we were exposed to every day and having to put your own capital to work to try and generate returns. So that was a really great kind of place to have your first sort of career. I was with a group of people that were, a lot of them around my same age, and everybody just hungry to learn and hungry to kind of develop ourselves in the markets. And then throughout that career, I also started doing some angel investing. So I was also very interested in startups and founders and helping people kind of grow and build businesses. So initially while I was in Dublin, and then once I moved to the US, started doing a lot of angel investing. So writing kind of smaller checks into the very early stages of a founder's growth and companies. And then after a while, had a little bit of success as an angel investor and started to just get pulled a little bit more towards the private markets as opposed to like trading public futures.
Okay.
And so that was when I decided about 18 months ago that I wanted to make the move into venture capital. And so for that to be the kind of second chapter of my working life. So that was in September 2024 was when I really made that decision to move.
Okay.
So after that, I decided to try and scale up my knowledge as much as I could about the industry. So I joined a venture accelerator called the Venture Institute, and that was really, really helpful. That gave me a lot of knowledge into what this industry was like, how to discover new companies, how to build a list of potential investors for your own fund, how to do proper due diligence and analyze different memos and different opportunities. And through that, I also got a residency placement with a fund in New York called Geek Ventures. So they invest predominantly in immigrant founders in the US. And that was again a great experience for me and got exposure to some really good people there and to the GP Ihar Mahaniak. And again, learned a ton there. And it was actually at an event probably a few months prior that I connected with Studio VC and who I'm currently working with now. And at that event, again in my trading career, I hadn't really had a need for networking, or there was no time to be out establishing relationships because we were just so focused granularly on the markets. So this was a new thing that kind of learned, and I suppose which eventually brought me to you and getting connected with Joel too, as well as just building those relationships and establishing new connections. So I was at an event and I connected with the principal of Studio VC, Toby McCoy, and we just got chatting. And he told me that he was working in venture in New York City and that they had an investment in an Irish company, which coincidentally was the company that I was an angel investor in called Wayflyer. So that's how we got connected. And he introduced me to the partners at the fund, and we spoke and had a couple of meetings over the next year. And then when they said that they would like to have me on board, I jumped at the opportunity.
Wow. You know, this is what I love about talking with entrepreneurs. Every entrepreneur has an amazing backstory, and it's so instructive. And you know, it's always so awesome to hear, like, you know, what were the steps and what were the evolutions that got somebody to where they are right now. And so, for you, Kieran, with what you know, what inspires you most about the work that you get to do and the impact you get to make?
What inspires me most, and especially about the venture world, and especially at the stage that we operate, we're investing very early in the life cycle of the company.
Okay.
So, from my own angel investing experience and from my experience with Studio VC, to be able to be on that journey with the founder as they are growing their business, as they are coming up against challenges, as they are conquering the difficulties to really start scaling and to grow something that becomes a success at the end, to be a part of that journey, not only from a financial standpoint, but from a advisory standpoint, or from, like we say on this podcast, of helping introduce people that might unlock new doors for these founders or for their business. That's something that I gain great satisfaction from. And the fact that we can kind of be on that journey with many fantastic founders who are at the cutting edge of lots of different technologies. Obviously, AI is a big talking point right now. So it's a really interesting time to be in this industry right now, as there's so much rapid change from one week to the next. And trying to decipher and discover what's going to be a success is also very mentally stimulating too.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so what is an example? And you have to name, you don't have to name names here or anything, but what is an example of a result that you have helped someone get that you're just incredibly proud of?
Yeah, certainly. So for early stage companies, I think because there's so many companies being founded, and even more this year with all the AI tools that are available, being able to raise capital is certainly not an easy thing. If you've had success prior, it certainly makes it a bit easier that you have a track record that you can point to. But for new founders who are trying to raise capital to help build their business, to help make their first few initial hires, to help maybe rent office space, to help purchase new technologies that they need to grow their business, and that's a huge unlock for those founders, especially at those early stages, and especially for kind of maybe a first time founders. So, what I've been able to do in certain instances, and in one company that I'm an angel investor in, is to introduce those founders to people that I thought would be a good fit for them and for people that might be interested in what they were building. and that also had the capital to deploy and really help them kind of get on that road to success. So that's something that I've been able to do for a couple of the companies that I've been involved in. Um, and as I wasn't coming from an operating background to really get in deep in the weeds technically with them and be kind of like day to day with them, being able to do that at kind of a higher level and make those financial introductions was a big help.
Yeah, yeah. And like, you know, if you're probably like me, it's just incredibly rewarding. It gives you a lot of joy just being able to make those kind of connections and just see what comes from that, you know. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. I get just such incredible joy from doing that kind of stuff, you know. Um, well, okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, I want to switch gears just a little bit. I want to just start focusing a little bit on the relationship side of this. So, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships, Kieran.
Very much so. I've been lucky to be introduced to a lot of wonderful people throughout my life and my career. And one person that really stood out to me was someone who I met in my earliest days of university. So I went to university in Cork in Ireland, and one of the best things and best moves that I ever made was playing football, or soccer as we'll call it in the US. So with the UCC soccer team, and through that organization and that club, I was introduced to the chairman of the alumni of of our football club at the time. His name is Kieran Mester. And me and him developed a bond very, very early. He was probably the first person that I met or was introduced to that was like a real entrepreneur.
Okay.
So I hadn't had that exposure to somebody who was building businesses or who was trying to really kind of grow what they had already established, and from a work standpoint and from a business standpoint. So to me that was very sort of inspirational to see not only was this person like not working for a company, but very much had his own autonomy as to what he was doing and what his sort of destination and destiny would be. And he was incredibly good to me in terms of taking me under his wing and teaching me how to, again, as we talk about so often, how to establish really strong relationships.
Yeah.
And he was someone that I would point to who, number one, was incredibly charismatic and was able to kind of walk into any room and be able to navigate different conversations and really kind of help people get the most out of themselves. So that was one thing that really stuck with me. And also he gave me so much time of his own time, and he was a very busy guy, but he took the time to help me on my career and my path and my journey. And that was when I graduated, or when I started in university, was 2006. So
Okay.
20 years later, we still have a very good relationship and still talk and still get advice. And he's really enjoyed seeing my kind of journey to this point.
Yeah.
And he was also someone that I saw had built businesses prior, but who also had like a really successful next chapter in his career. So he built a very successful recruitment agency, both in the UK and in Ireland. And so just seeing that someone who had that hunger, someone who had that drive, and someone who was also very generous with their time for the kind of next crop of people coming through, was very, very important to me. And that gave me a lot of inspiration from a very early age that I wanted to be able to get on that road to success, and in certain ways be an entrepreneur myself and be the kind of owner of my own destiny.
Amen. I love that, man. I listen to you share that, Kieran, and I think of people in my own life that I've had these long-term relationships with that have watched, you know, me grow and just watch my evolution, and they're kind of just there the whole way, just rooting you along, you know, and just rooting for you, and just and celebrating with you when you have wins and stuff, and it just means so much. And it inspires us to just do more, you know. And, yeah, yeah. So
Absolutely, no, I couldn't agree more, Kevin. And someone that you can really sort of lean on in times where maybe you have certain challenges that you're going through, or someone who can just give a fresh and different perspective from the experiences that they've had that you probably haven't gotten to yet. Was incredibly useful and incredibly incredibly beneficial to me.
Yeah. Now you had one more person that you wanted to honor too, so I want to make sure that we give you time to do that too. So,
Yes, yes, certainly. So I was very, very lucky to have my brother is an entrepreneur as well. And
okay.
so he's established a number of companies, some that he has exited already, and one company called Wayflyer, which is an Irish unicorn. So they do revenue-based financing for initially what were e-commerce businesses, but now they're also branching off into other verticals.
Okay.
So he was always, again, someone that I was very lucky to be able to lean on growing up, and who I saw from a kind of an inside look of what life as an entrepreneur was like and what it took to really establish and build a very successful business, and that is one that is still growing. And that was also going back to how we got connected with Studio VC, and that they were an investor in his company. So there was a sort of natural alignment for me and the fund and the guys that were working there. So that also helped lead me into the private market career that I'm currently in.
Okay. Okay. Well, so what is an example of a situation where you personally, Kieran, got to make a really substantial impact, where maybe even in the moment you were just like, wow, look at what just happened there. And yet you also know that would have never happened if not for the relationship that you have with either one of the gentlemen that you were talking about, your brother or the other gentleman. What's an example of something where you were empowered in that way because of these relationships?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the first relationship that I mentioned with
Okay.
Kieran Nestor, who is the chairman of our alumni, and because I think we formed a bond quite quickly, he thought that I would do well as a member of the soccer club, and so he actually made me secretary of the soccer club in my second year in university, I think, and then the year after I was chairman. So that was a big role for me and something that was great for me to kind of have an experience at a very young age during university. So while that helped with developing some kind of background admin skills and all that, it also forced me to become kind of someone who's okay with public speaking and be able to kind of talk to a room and establish and build relationships with people, whether it was members of the five teams that we had playing every week, whether the coaching staff, whether it was alumni and donors, or whether it was administration officials within the university. So that was great experience for me to get at a very young age, and it was also obviously it was an unpaid position, but it was also something that I really enjoyed kind of giving back to and being
Yeah.
of value to people. So that definitely put me on that trajectory too, where, okay, I want to be in these roles and in these rooms where I'm able to kind of have this impact to the people that I'm working with.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, what what's your vision for the company going forward from here, from your current vantage point? What's your vision? Where to from here, Kieran?
Great question. So, as I mentioned, I'm quite new with Studio VC. I've been in the role about 7 months, but
Yep.
I'm really getting to see that we have an incredibly talented team, and we're a small team based in New York, and we have the makings of what I think can be a really successful VC fund. So, we've had two funds so far that are both performing really well and have had really great portfolio companies within those funds. And I think we can really grow that to another scale where we're investing larger amounts of capital and we're having even more impact and being involved with even more successful companies as the years go forward. So, really wanting to make a large impact within the firm and then within the companies that we're help building. As I mentioned, this is an incredibly interesting and exciting time to be involved in early stage venture, especially in the kind of technology and AI space, which is where we tend to operate. So I want to be able to establish and build those relationships with the next crop of amazing founders who are going on to build really great businesses. And within Studio VC in New York, I think that's the perfect place for me to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for anyone that might be listening to this and thinking to themselves, man, Kev, I really like Kieran. I like who he is. I like how he shows up. And maybe they're just listening to some of the stuff you share and think, man, it would be really, I might have a connection for him, or I want to run something by him and stuff. Any websites, any resources we could share with folks who might want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. You can find me on LinkedIn at Kieran Corbett, working with Studio VC, or also feel free to send me an email at kcorbett@studio.vc.
Okay, perfect. Is there any last thing that you feel led to share, Karen, before we call it a wrap?
Well, I love sure, Kevin. It was really great chatting to you, and I love what you've built in terms of the podcast that you're putting forward and the emphasis that you have on establishing new relationships and seeing how they can really be fruitful towards people. I was again very glad that that Joel connected us. I met Joel when I was in Madrid last year, and it was actually through his cousin who's based in New York and who was also a founder and we're building a really great business called Rept. He was like, you got to meet Joel. So he was one of the first people that I met when I got to Madrid, and we established a great relationship. But that's something that I've always been quite intentional with. Of once I get to a new place or start something new, whether it's a new career or a new business, to just say yes to everything for those initial kind of few weeks and months, to where whether it's going for a brunch or whether it's taking a coffee with somebody, whether it's going to a networking event, not all of them will be fantastic, but the ones that are can really be great and can really help send you in a good direction going forward, whether it's career wise or personally or whatever it is. So that's something I would always encourage people to do, is to say yes to people. And again, saying yes to this conversation was fantastic.
Yeah, amen to that. And good advice right there. Especially, for like, yeah, right connections, right relationships. I mean, one right relationship can totally change someone's trajectory, and man, look what happened to you. And so, I mean, I see examples of this all the time doing interviews for this podcast and stuff. And so, well, Karen, once again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with folks. So thanks so much, man.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Appreciate the time.
You bet.